Good evening once again and welcome to the interview segment of this news bulletin. On 9th of March last year, two men met, had a conversation and decided to come together in what is iconically known as the handshake. And arguably, the nation of Kenya has never been the same again. We'll look at the handshake and all the fruits of that tree, 1 year down the line. What has happened in our nation? I have a panel of guests here, and we're hoping to get some insights into what they see from this proceeding. We're hoping to get some understanding of what it is that has been happening 1 year down the line from this big, momentous occasion that changed the history of Kenya. Hopefully for good, but we will find out more about that in our discussion. Karibu sana. And tonight, I am blessed to have three guests, like I mentioned earlier. One, we have a person who's been involved in public service voluntarily. He was in the private sector, very successful, but he opted to step up, answer the call and serve the nation. You have known him as Principal Secretary, Mr. Irungu. Nyakera. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Thank you very much. Next, we have a lawyer and somebody who's interested in matters women, leadership and development. She's here, she's youthful, but do not be mistaken. Her youth does not mean a lack of brains or a lack of insight. She's packing some punch, and she's right here with us. Karibu sana, Ms. Wamae.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And next we have a political figure. He's a legislator. He's very vocal and he's not afraid of expressing what he thinks, and he's always stood by what he's said. He's a member of parliament for Ndaragwa. The people of Ndaragwa know him very well. His name is Mr. Kioni. Karibu sana.
Asante.
Thank you for giving us your time.
Thank you for having us.
I'm sure busy schedule.
Asante sana.
Asante sana. So basically what we're here to talk about is the Building Bridges Initiative and the handshake. The two are intertwined. The first question perhaps I would ask of all of you is, where were you at such a time last year? And how did you receive the image of these two men coming out of the doors of Harambee House together and then shaking hands? How did you receive that? And then, as they say, ladies first, but we're living in the days of equality, right? So I'll just start with whoever happens to be closest to me. Sir, Karibu-san.
No, thank you. And actually, as you mentioned, it was a truly historical moment. And I remember for me, I was Principal Secretary, so I was still in government, and had been very active follower and participator in the 2017 run up to the election. And I knew the narrative that was running in the country then. So seeing the two people who were the ones speaking for against one or the other coming together, I think from my end was, of course, saying all the things we are saying now. Now we have to swallow them,
right, right.
And look at it in a bigger way. In particular, what are they thinking? Like, what's the real plan behind it?
Were you shocked?
Very surprised. I must say, it was very surprising.
You never had a clue that this was happening?
No, we didn't have a clue. And of course, given, as you mentioned, I think we're looking at it from the point of, if it's not political, because we already had the government, because the president did not require an additional backing to achieve, to have government. He already had government. So we're now trying to read beyond that and see what is it that the president is trying to achieve with this. And we felt that if it's truly about bringing together the country, uniting the country, healing the country from that very bitter contest, and the contest that every 5 years you are sure to have, then for us we fully supported it. Of course, over time we've seen that they've developed cracks and camps, and I guess we'll be discussing that further. But I think from the onset, it seemed like a very noble initiative. Right. It probably still is, and I hope it still is. But from where we sat, we really were surprised but supported it fully.
Right. What about you? How did you receive that sight of these two people walking down the corridor together, right? And this with the backdrop that was there, and how do you see that?
Yeah, thank you so much. For me, it was quite interesting, surprising, shocking, and a very unimaginable event. Considering I was actively involved in the last time's election through Warembo Nahura, was the Secretary General. So you can imagine the backing we had for Jubilee Party, and it brought a lot of tension and friction between the Jubilee supporters and the rival group, which is also the ODM party. So for us, and the kind of vigor we had fighting the whole, trying to defend your party, it brought a little bit of uncertainty of what's this going to leave, where is it going to leave us? Now these are two people you're conflicting over, now they're together, now what next? But on the other side, except for that, championing part, on the side of national cohesion and peace and unity, which had really affected most parts of our country and had affected businesses. Businesses were not doing any good. The relation, we could not relate so well with our, our other Kenyans from the Western region. It brought some tranquility and peace that we enjoy to date. And business, the vibrancy of business came back, and it was just a life-changing event that we had not foreseen, considering it was just a few months earlier, there was this issue of swearing in from his Honorable Raila Odinga, and the tension, we don't know what's happening in the country. So for me it was shocking, because these two people were not seeing eye to eye. Then all of a sudden, a handshake, nothing was planned, and with our media, we always know things prior. So when that didn't, we were not prepared psychologically, but I would say that one was the best step for Kenya. That was one of, when two statesmen, come for the sake of the nation's unity, I think that was a good move for them. I support it. And we enjoy this peace we have right now, and the kind of, we have resumed to the national unity, the national activities because of this handshake. So however much it was unimaginable, I totally support it, and it's a good move for them. It was a very good and noble move.
Right.
Yeah.
Mheshimiwa, you're a politician. You perhaps, of all people here, would be better placed to be prepared for this sort of about turn. You've seen about turns in politics. You've seen people change direction in politics. Did you envision that such a thing would happen?
Perhaps not as fast as it did. But if you went back down memory lane and go back to 2002, you recall that when we were able to dislodge KANU from power, that time it was the DP, the NAC, and the deputy party leader here of DP. The President Kibaki kept talking about a government of national unity. He carried that with him even in 2007. And we may not have seen it a lot in 2013, but in my opinion, I see it, this is exactly what again happened in 2017. Just before the handshake, I know I had been, there was a little bit of backlash on my case, because I kept calling for us to look for ways to bring on board the other side of the political divide. And
that was not very popular.
It wasn't, and I can tell you, I almost was heckled at one of my constituency. But they all later called and said, we didn't know what you are seeing. I want to tell you that this country, what the president did, it's the thing that must be done by every statesman. And because of the very many people who are around him, and you can hear it from Sarah here, the ones who are within Jubilee, and the kind of austerity that had, there was quite a lot of hostile in a very almost violent.
It was quite personal.
Yes, and very personal.
Yeah, it was too personal.
He needed to do it solo. Because if he had consulted, people around him would have told him, don't. But that is the best thing that he would have done for the country, and he did it. It is the thing that will have to be done 2022, 2027, and that is what is also expected of every other leader once you win elections in that setting. And it is also there in the Constitution. It is the way the winner interprets it, and also the loser, the way he takes it. It is, we couldn't imagine it happening that way, that quickly. But it is a thing that it's been done. I am talking about President Kibaki did it. 2002, when people came together. Because what you do when you win an election is that you've been given an opportunity to preside over. And when you are presiding over, it is not just your side of the divide that won. It's presiding over the affairs of the nation. You cannot preside over the affairs of this nation by having that major block out in the code. I am the chair of the Constitutional Implementation Oversight Committee in Parliament. And even as the handshake was taking place, we had already started thinking, and we are still doing it even now, looking for ways of amending the Constitution to create room for these other presidential candidates who are running to lead us all as a country. The fact that they did not win or they did not get majority of the votes should never be an opportunity to churn them and allow them that the only time they can speak to us is when they attend a burial or when they are at the fog of tear gas. To
sort of limit their
It is not right. It cannot help us as a country. It is one of the areas that we need to quickly agree to amend. We need to look for a way, not through a referendum. We have already identified a way that we can bring them either to Parliament or to the Senate, so that we are able to hear that alternative might that they had.
Indeed.
And that alternative might must have been for the good of this nation.
I like that you bring that out, and I'd like to start with you for this next question. And of course, having been, as you say, and we've seen you also, one of the kind of the earlier proponents of dialogue,
yes,
when it was not very popular. You had a vision in mind when you were talking about dialogue, when you're talking about let's sit down to talk together, let's come together. Do you feel that your vision, do you feel that the hope that you had in that process has been fulfilled? 1 year down the line, the hopes and aspirations that you had for the handshake, what you had in mind and what you saw?
It's on, and it is working, and it is nice. The only thing is that this brought jitters within Jubilee too early. That's the downside, and we may not be able to benefit from it, the full hog. But it is what will have to be done going forward. William Ruto becomes president in 2022, or any other person, he will have to go out and shake the hand of that other person.
Is it realistic? Is it realistic? You said something very critical here. Is it realistic to have expected that perhaps all the key people involved would embrace it 100%?
No, but as we move on, we as politicians are realizing that you cannot rule this country. Even winning alone is not enough. You need to have everybody else on board, and the other persons need not agree with what you are saying, but to give them an opportunity to also say what they had in mind. It is not realistic, but it also helps us in the way we campaign going forward. And I think this is why you are seeing some clear groups forming around 2022, because now it is not a question of just winning. It's also a question of whichever road you use, you are likely to be at the table where decisions are going to be made. And that's a good thing about the country, because we stop being unnecessarily polarized to the point where we influence the young ones, like Sarah here, in the long direction, where they get to think that this is our enemy. And how are we going to talk to these people from the Western Bloc, as she has put it?
Right.
That is what we must make sure that it never finds space in the minds of the young people. competing for the presidency does not mean that you rule. The Constitution talks about serving people as opposed to ruling. You serve them when you bless everybody. Of course, it is also important, an incumbent on those who don't win, to also accept, to have the magnanimity of accepting that they didn't win, and there is a winner who must preside over the issues. That is what we need now to see from the persons who don't quite win.
Right. I'd like to bring you into this conversation, and thank you for that. 1 year down the line, what you saw, and in your opening statement, there are a number of things you said you felt when you saw this happening and unfolding in front of your eyes. Do you feel that what you hoped for this process has matured, has come to pass, or do you have some elements of uncertainty?
I think for me, I'm big on the economy. I was PS planning then, and of course, for us, what we are looking at especially after talking to a lot of people, once the election is over, the last thing people wanted is a political mood. I think everyone wanted now to move on for another 3 years. They make some money, they recover the money, and so everyone's question was, will this bring back the political mood, the campaign mood? Is there a possibility that it could end up splitting us further? I think Mheshimiwa has mentioned that, of course, with this handshake, what it did is it also brought the 2022 electioneering mood closer. It's brought a split in Jubilee, a very visible one. Some people will say that there is no split, but it's all there for everyone to see. And so what it has meant, unfortunately, is that the economic focus has really not been there. I know we started talking about the big four, and as you're talking about the big four, and then you have the elephant in the room, which is what is BBI here for, then you find that it's not getting the kind of attention that it ought to get. So I think for me, I would say that the concern that I had then was that country will be united, true, will be peaceful, but nothing else will be working. And I think that's, in my view, that's where we are. Yeah, where I feel that, and you talk to a lot of people, they talk saying their businesses are not, it's not going great in their businesses. We're looking at the money. There's no money flowing in the system, and yet we are still talking about really pushing on this agenda of the BBI, the 2022 narrative, and all these other things. So I think there's it's one thing that I would say that I'm feel unfortunate about, but I do hope that there's a way in which we can really find build on the economy narrative.
Now, unfortunately, though, that and you're right in saying this, that the economic agenda is not really gaining that much prominence right now. It's all about, for some reason, what was meant to be the end or at least a ceasefire in terms of politics has given birth to even more politics, and therefore what should have taken the prominence back then, which was the economy, which was putting money in people's pockets, which was service delivery, seems to have taken not even a backseat. It's pretty much out of the car. What are your thoughts on this, and how would you advise the people in charge or people involved, the stakeholders, to salvage this situation?
I was talking to some governors yesterday and the day before, and with regards to the governors conference, the devolution conference, and they were saying that they felt that the narrative that was brought to the conference was not particularly right, because they had investors there, they had your World Bank, they had private sector. All these people had come to listen and engage on how to build the whole businesses within the county structures, to see how they can engage better with counties, to see how they can devolve their functions themselves, the funding and all that, and even the investments. But then when the other leaders were coming, they were all coming and to kind of air out their issues, that were had nothing to do with devolution or the economy. And so they felt that they could probably have used that opportunity to talk even more about even these big four.
So that was, in your opinion, a missed opportunity?
I think it was a missed opportunity. And as you say, it's a missed opportunity in that forum, but again, it's actually a missed opportunity in the current environment in the country. So I think there is need for us to step back and actually listen to the Wanjiko Otieno and look at what is this where they thought there will be a year and a half after the election, and what can we do to them to serve them for the next 2-3 years before now we get really into the 2022 narrative.
Perhaps before you allow us to leave that point, the BBI. You see, the handshake came with the BBI. And the BBI is doing some useful job. But having BBI in this mix has confused issues.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
That is what found itself at the conference. I attended the Kirinyaga Devolution Conference. And BBI seems to have been used as the one shaping the theme, corruption and BBI. And I think we really need to understand, I have been before the BBI, I have told you that I chair the Constitution Implementation Oversight Committee. We need to demystify. And also, I think there's too much expectations from BBI.
Thank you. Let me come back to you on that one, because now my question becomes, you know, there's this perception about the BBI. It's like some sort of silver bullet. There's some sort of solution to all of Kenya's problems. And I need to know from you, and I'm already getting your sentiment, but I would like to know from you, even you, Sarah, is it realistic? Is it honest for the people who are proponents of the BBI to package it like the one solution for all of Kenya's problems? Is it right to have that? And as you jump in, Mheshimiwa, please.
Okay, the issue with that, with packaging it as the only solution is, right now, given the current situation, already it has been politicized in a way. Some people feel it's a, it's a vehicle to try and push themselves to power and push others away, So not everybody feel covered under that umbrella. And that is also bringing the divisiveness that we have always avoided. So for me, it's not really achieving the intended purpose. And also, it is not, I wouldn't say it's wrong or right to put it as the only solution, as the only silver, you said, a silver bullet, yeah. I don't think it's right to put it that way, because people have a different opinions, and the propellers of this need to be very careful on how it's coming to the people on the ground, people who don't understand what this is all about. You see, what is in paper and what is being said, and the whole idea behind it, it's amazing. It's a very great idea, an idea that's going to push this country to greater heights in terms of unity, in terms of bringing in reforms that are going to see us moving through elections better in the future and all that. But now the issue is this current situation whereby people feel like now people are taking sides again. Now there's no difference between what was foreseen, the handshake, bringing all the people together, Jubilee merging with ODM and all other people, coming under the same umbrella. But now there is this, I don't want to mention the names, but there's that kind of, different views on this same BBI. So my wish would have been, if this BBI was packaged in a way that will bring the solutions and solve the issues of the many Kenyans, and especially I talk on behalf of youths because I'm one, and these are concerns whereby, and the reason why I'm more interested in this BBI thing, this BBI initiative, it's because we can be able to, it's a handshake that brought a whole difference. And if we are involved in it, we can be able to leverage on what it brings, the calmness, and then it has brought a huge political capital whereby we can leverage on the situation, work better on the calmness that we are experiencing, and also involve the youths more. because inclusivity of the youth is what is not being seen.
But there's a problem here, though. There's
Yeah.
a problem here.
Okay.
I mean, there's less than a month before the BBI presents its findings and everything. Is there time still to salvage this, Mheshimiwa? Like what she's saying, she feels the packaging has been less than perfect.
I think we must give them the credit, and they've done well. They've gone out the country. They've had people. People have had an opportunity to vent out. They've gotten more than perhaps they had been beyond their mandate. And certainly it is a question of what do we do with all these issues that people have raised. And I imagine that many of those issues would have to find their way into Parliament. Mm-hmm. And it is Parliament that will try and decipher, decode, see what needs to be done, how do we apply, or how do we satisfy Kenyans from this side to the other. Because, and this is where I was coming from when I was saying that when I attended the devolution conference, is though a lot was not said about the BBI, and a little bit of expounding or trying to explain what these 9 points were intended to achieve, people just quickly said amendment to the Constitution, referendum.
And that's the main
and actually, that's my point.
And I can tell you that this is why we need to pause. And even the governors needed to perhaps use the opportunity to pause and say, you're expecting too much. I don't see any amendment to the Constitution coming from BBI. In any case, that was not their mandate. Mm-hmm. If you look at their 9-point agenda, it has nothing to do with the amendment of the Constitution.
So we have a problem of perception versus
reality.
reality.
There is expectations that are already there among Kenyans. But some of those expectations are likely to be met by what is happening in Parliament. A lot is happening in Parliament. We have a lot of constitutional amendment bills that are likely to be published in the coming days to answer some of the issues that Kenyans have been answering. We are going to work very closely with BBI because it is also a national initiative that is good for this country. But it is not. It is crucial that we don't hold our economic activities because there is something happening in BBI. Right. I think one of the things, I don't know whether it will be what people should take home from this sitting that we have today. We have a constitution in this country. And even for the young people, we are not going to, there are no other reforms we are looking for. The Constitution provides ways of resolving the issues that we have. We've not tried, it's like our smartphones. You have your smartphone and you're using like 0.5% of all that
capability
it's supposed to give you. That's the way this Constitution is. This Constitution of ours has so much, it gives us solutions to all the issues, including inclusivity. But we want to jump and say, we want to amend the Constitution, we want to do another reform, we want another law.
But whose job is it?
I hear you.
Whose job is it? I mean, the people are asking.
Yes,
we have this very, very fantastic document.
Let me tell you what I think what happened.
2013, to implement it?
2013 is not even implementing. 2013, after we gave ourselves our Constitution in 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013 should have been taken over by civic education so that people understand what is provided for in the Constitution. It never happened for the reason that there was, again, political competition, almost like what we are now seeing. So we missed out that opportunity, and that was left, is still out there. And even as we sit here, there is a question that is even begging Parliament. Who is going to take us through civic education so that Kenyans stop asking for new provisions that are already provided for under the Constitution?
And that's the problem, right?
But this is why we have the
Who's
committee.
Going to be answering
this
these
is why
questions?
we have the Constitution Implementation Oversight Committee.
Right.
And these are some of the things that we in Parliament must make sure that they come out. Right. And I'm telling you that I've been before BBI. And we even have had informal discussion because there is real need to deal with these issues. The gaps that emerge, like inclusivity, how can we sort out that, fix it quickly, because the country needs to move on and benefit from this Constitution. Go back to the devolution. And I agree with Irungu. To me, it was really, I sat there and I felt like, oh God, this is another opportunity we have lost. We should have used it to jumpstart. What we needed to do more at Kirinyaga was the economics. But we allowed the politics to
Take
swing
center stage, right.
and take over. And all we took home was politics.
Even more politics.
2022, highway, super highway.
Which is why I want you to come in, and I really want you to. You see, you came from the private sector,
Yeah.
right? Things are working there. I mean, it's all profit oriented. There's no time for politicking. It has to make a difference on the balance sheet. And you also have experience in government as well as a principal secretary.
Yeah.
You're a member of the youth cadre, so to speak. You're a lawyer, right? You understand the law, and you also are highly political. You know, you participate in a political contest quite actively. I need to understand from you what Mheshimiwa is saying here. There are a lot of questions from members of the public. I mean, this should have been done, this wasn't done, this and this other thing has joined the long list of all the other things that are not working.
You know,
what should happen?
If you look at
who should answer these questions?
As Mheshimiwa said, I think that's what him and I and Han knows, that the BBI is not about amendment of the Constitution. In fact, as the Democratic Party, we did our submission on Thursday this week. And I think other than the system of government, which will then call for a constitution amendment, everything else was about different other legislative documents. If it's about the Banking Act, if it's about the youth, there is really a lot. Yeah. So I think it's more around who has taken over the narrative of BBI to position it as a 2022 vehicle.
Yeah.
And of course, they've been very successful in that, because today, if you ask, actually, when we were discussing as a National Executive Committee for Democratic Party from across the country, everyone was talking about the constitutional amendment, but we were very clear that the 9 points that have been raised by BBI are actually not just about the constitution. So I think there needs to be, we need to come back and look at what was the intended purpose of BBI. In our case, for example, as a DP, because we were looking at focusing on the youth and businesses, things like SMEs, as we were saying before. People don't have, the youth are not getting paid for AGPO. Yeah? Government came up with a very good policy. 30% of businesses in the county and the national government go to youth. As a youth, I come, I borrow money, I go perform on a tender, and I'm not paid. 6 months, a year later, I'm being auctioned, and I had just started. As a business, I'm going to a bank which has my deposits, and the bank is giving all its money to government because of it's easier to give government money as opposed to taking a risk on the small businesses. But this economy has to be built by small businesses. So what is it then that we need to do to ensure that the small businesses, which employ 60%, 85% of the population and contribute 60% to our GDP, we support them. So that's the essence of the BBI, to listen to everyone across the country and see how we can improve the economic prospects. Yeah. So as Mheshimiwa said, it's the narrative around it that was taken over by the political side.
And so it's rather difficult to
disengage. It's very difficult to disengage, but maybe he knows a way to go about it.
Allow me to just kind of briefly cut in here. My director tells me that we're running short of time, but I'd like to get your views, after which I would like all of you here, the year has passed, right? You've given some pretty concrete points on what has gone wrong over the past year. The question I'd like to ask after you share your views is, will the handshake still hold for the second year in a row? Number two, and this is where I would like you to really just as briefly as you possibly can, but as powerfully as you can you communicate to the audiences, what are your recommendations on how the BBI and the handshake as a whole and the country should move forward in this year, starting, let's say the year starting since the handshake began, which is March 9th. Going forward, what should be done? Your views pretty quickly, and please segue into the question that I asked.
All right. First of all, I want to back my colleagues up on that. the issue of misconception of the BBI, and that is what I was addressing before, because people are not taking it as it's supposed to be. That misconception, people politicizing it, it's what is, creeping the whole, that can, okay, it's not creeped yet, it can be creeped with, crippled by such kind of, insinuations, misconceptions, people not understanding exactly. And that is, they're doing a very good work. In fact, going around the counties, getting the views of members, the electorate, people who are directly affected by the issues of politics, and the elections directly affect these people. So my view is, if they can continue, they can continue with the same kind of interaction with the people, and then they try as much as possible to avoid these misconceptions through politics. That one is somehow unavoidable, but there's a way it can be tamed to fall onto the right things, especially economic, as he says, and also matters of policy and the law, you say, because as it is, it's not it's not bringing forth the referendum or the amendment of the constitution, but that is what people know. People know the moment you're supporting the BBI, that is
referendum.
That's referendum, yeah, automatically. So that misconception needs to be dealt with, and people really need to understand.
How? What would you say? How
one thing is by civic education. That one is a very vital thing, and especially in the mashinani, because it has to be done in a very big way, because what they are doing, yes, it's good, but they have to reach out. They have to make structures that can reach out to the common person who is not able to attend those forums to discuss these issues, to understand where this thing is coming from. Also, they should give more publicity to the real issues, those 9 issues, and cover up for, like the way they are saying in the revolution. The whole topic was on politics, on the BBI versus who I don't know what, it was all politicized. So even in such forums when everybody is watching and following up, in such form, that's when you're supposed to bring the real agenda in a united front, together, without those political, back and forth.
So we should ideally see something different in the next governors' conference, devolutions.
Yeah, that one definitely has to be seen.
Right. Can you jump in here and tell us and our audiences about going forward? What are your recommendations, real quick, please?
I think, in my view, the referendum, I think the BBI is a segue into a referendum. I don't think that's necessarily a misconception. In my view, there will be a referendum. So it's really about what's the question that will be there on the referendum.
Right.
And if you look at really the areas that the referendum question will be about, is more around the system of government. And that's why you're finding that a lot of the politicking is around the system of government. Which system should be adopted? Is it the same one that we've been having that has been a winner-take-all, or is it a more inclusive system of government that brings in, as Mheshimiwa had said, the team that loses also has a role of checking the government, and that is not just at the national level, it's also at county level. So I think that we just have to accept that is actually one of the things that will be happening, so that we move on, knowing that will happen. We just wait to be told which question will be there. But then now looking at the other areas that are covered under the BBI, I feel that we need to move fairly quickly with Parliament, for example. Some of them can be done very quickly. They don't need a referendum. Things of like, how do we support SMEs? That can be done very quickly if it's legislative amendments to the Banking Act and the others, to ensure that we're injecting money to the SMEs and stopping government from borrowing all the money that banks have. That can be done by Mheshimiwa. And that doesn't have to wait. And as sooner it's done, the faster we can be able to revitalize the economy. On youth, as we were saying, today everyone is complaining, oh, help here, for me to get a job, I need 10,000 shillings to get bank clearance, help clearance, CID, good conduct. That can be done. That does not need a referendum. It has already been identified as a problem. It can be done immediately. When you're talking about the CRA formula, it's very unfair that people in Meru are getting a per capita of 6,000 shillings when people in Marsabit are getting 25,000 shillings. That can be addressed immediately. So I think we need to be looking at the BBI. They've played a really good role. They're going around the country, and we need to look at what are the issues that have already been raised. We don't need to wait for the report. let's start resolving some of them.
Right away.
As long as they're bringing the country together, they are going to be building on the economy, uplifting it, and looking at the issues of youth to ensure that it's also fully inclusive to the youth. But as Mheshimiwa said, the civic education has to come in at this point.
All right. I want to wind up with you. And you know, obviously the sense, and then here in this discussion as well as out there, is that a lot of the burden is actually, you know, on the legislature. As brief as you possibly can.
Very briefly is that, one is that those good ideas about SMEs, I would encourage the DP party to channel them through a committee. We'll give them the necessary media coverage. They will always be credited with your party, but let them find their way into the floor of the House so that we can help the small parties. There is nobody with a monopoly of knowledge. On this other issue, I have mentioned 2002 very briefly. 2002, when Kibaki brought everybody on board, we were able to grow the economy. Before then, we were doing a negative growth, and the economy was on a 2007, we got into the violence. Again, the Grand Coalition, forced by an act of parliament, but we were able to give ourselves a new constitution. We have this BBI thing, the handshake. It has given us one thing that we'll remember forever. We've been able to deal with corruption in a manner unprecedented before. So even if we get nothing else from it, we have been able to deal with the issue of corruption in a way that we have set the bar very high. But again, going forward is that we expect that a lot of the work that BBI has done will be then channeled to Parliament so that it can be put into the legislative wheel and see how much of it we can turn into law. I want to caution on the issue of, I know there is the issue of the system of government. Here, the DP, Democratic Party, Deputy Party Leader. You know, now you have to be very careful with this. DP.
And then there's a main DP.
Yes, and there is a main DP. And there is even a DP party. So all these things are very many.
The DP of DP.
Yes, and there is a main DP.
Right.
But I wanted to say that I want to caution because in there lies the elephant in the room, the equality of the vote. If you are talking about a different system of governance, how are you going to deal with the issue of the equality of the vote? That's why I'm saying, let us not put too much hope and too much, you know, we may say we want to change the system of government. But there is the big question that nobody is answering, the equality of the vote. This is how we ended up where we are. And but again, it is in Parliament, there is a lot of civic education that must be done. I want to ask one question. People, and even perhaps including myself, we want ministers back from the floor of the House. Remember this. When we had ministers on the floor of the House, the first thing every political minister did was to make sure that he develops his constituency. Because he's looking for votes. So he must first and foremost please his home area. That has now gone. Now, the other one is this. We are going to have Makoha, hopefully, and I am positive, he's going to be our new minister or CS
For education.
For education. We have Matiang, who has made huge changes in this country because of his approach to work. Those are two individuals who would never ever have served this country at that level if we were still under the old system of governance. We will need to balance all these issues out as we go on. BBI, as they wind up, I think we are ready in Parliament to take on board what they have done. They've done good work. Handshake is happening. It will happen 2022. It must be a way of managing government.
Right. Thank you so much for coming. And even as we do this interview and even as we've gotten into some of the details, there's a realization that this is such a large subject. This is such a huge subject. And you used the phrase elephant in the room.
Yes.
I believe there are quite a few elephants in this room. And I know it will take quite a while, quite a number of conversations similar to this, perhaps greater than this, that would be able to bring forth what we need. What I would urge the people who are watching and as our guests, let's keep engaging. Let's keep, whenever you meet Mr. Kioni or you meet Ms. Wamae or you meet Mr. Nyakera here, anywhere, or any of your representatives, let's engage on this subject so that we can be able to get some of the questions that you have answered. I have quite a lot of feedback on this, and I know we haven't got any time. My director, Mugo Kariuki, is quite clear that we haven't got enough time to handle everything. But perhaps let's keep talking digital. at KBC Channel 1, at Muyakane. Do you have a Twitter handle?
W Nyakera.
At W Nyakera. Do you have yours?
Yes, Sarah Wamae.
At Sarah Wamae. And do you have yours?
Jeremiah Kioni.
At Jeremiah Kioni.
And Sarah Wamae and I come from Darago.
Right, right.
He's my area MP.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
I wish we had more time. We would actually get into a lot more detail about that. But this is the situation, good people. The handshake is here with us. It's been 1 year down the line, and apparently the country is slowly but steadily picking up the pieces after the divisive election of 2017. And a year after the handshake, the economic prospects of the country are promising. They're looking promising.